I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story like this, but life has a way of knocking you flat when you least expect it. My name's James, I'm 38, and I thought I had a pretty normal marriage with my wife, Emily. We'd been together for 10 years, had a kid, a boy named Ethan, and honestly, I thought we were solid. Sure, every relationship has its issues, but nothing drastic, or at least that's what I told myself. Things started to feel off about 6 months ago. Emily became more distant, more irritable, snapping at me over little things. I'd ask what's wrong and she'd brush it off, saying she was stressed at work or tired. She started staying late at her friend Lisa's house more often. At first, I didn't think much of it. People do that, right? But then I noticed her phone more, hiding it when I came into the room, texting at strange hours. She'd quickly lock the screen or turn away. One night, I decided to check her phone. I know, not exactly the textbook way to handle suspicions, but I couldn't shake this feeling that something was wrong. I figured if she's innocent, she'd be fine with me looking. I grabbed her phone while she was in the shower and started scrolling through her messages. I found a string of texts with some guy named Ryan, completely casual, or so it seemed at first. Flirty, sure, but nothing concrete. I thought maybe I was overreacting. But then I saw it. The messages between Emily and Ryan kept going. Over the past few months, they'd been texting behind my back, talking about everything. Her day, how she was tired of me, how she needed someone who understood her better. And the worst part, they'd been sexting. Explicit stuff enough to make my stomach turn. I couldn't believe it. My wife, who I trusted with everything, lying right to my face, hiding this secret from me for months. What made it worse was that I was planning to surprise her with a weekend getaway for our anniversary. I even bought her a nice gift. I was feeling good about us, thinking maybe we were finally reconnecting after Ethan's birth. And then bam, I see this. The betrayal was right there on my phone, clear as day. I felt my world shatter in that moment. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. I remember the exact second I realized the full scope of what I was looking at. Ryan wasn't just some guy she was texting. They'd been talking about meeting up, about how much they missed each other when they weren't together. I saw the pictures she sent him, these little selfies, some in bed, some with her cheeks flushed from sex, as she called it. I felt sick. All those times she'd told me she was exhausted from work, that she just wanted to relax, that she loved me, none of it was true. All the while she was secretly sneaking around behind my back. That was the moment my mind went into overdrive. How could she do this? How could she betray me, especially after everything we'd been through? Our son's funeral had just happened a week ago, and I was barely holding it together. I thought I'd grieved enough to start healing, but then I found this. It was like life was laughing in my face, kicking me while I was down. I remember feeling this cold rage bubble up inside me, mixed with heartbreak so deep I thought I'd drown in it. I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at her messages, her photos, trying to make sense of it all, trying to find some kind of justification, some reason she'd do this. But deep down, I knew there was none. Just the ugly truth that she had been cheating on me, lying to me and playing me for months. And all I could think about was the funeral. How I buried my son, how I needed her to be there for me, and she was out there, doing who knows what with Ryan. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew I needed a plan. I needed to process everything before I lost my mind. Still, I couldn't sleep. I kept flipping between feeling numb and bursting out in tears. How could she lie so much? How could she look me in the eyes and tell me she loved me when she was sneaking around, sexting some guy during our darkest days? I felt betrayed, humiliated, furious, like I'd been made a fool of in the worst possible way. So that's where I am now, sitting here typing this out. My world is shattered and I don't know what comes next. I just know that I can't pretend anymore. I've seen enough to know that I don't want to stay in this relationship, not after what I found. But the pain of it all, damn, it's so raw. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew us. Turns out I was living with a stranger all along. After I stared at her messages that night, I knew I couldn't keep quiet. The betrayal ran so deep that I felt like I was suffocating. I put her phone down slowly, like it was a hot coal in my hand. My mind was racing. Do I call her out right now? Do I confront her when she gets out of the shower? Or do I wait, think, plan? I was so overwhelmed with anger and heartbreak that I couldn't even think straight. Eventually, I decided I needed to talk to her face to face. I waited for her to come out of the bathroom, trying to get a grip on myself. When she finally came into the bedroom, I saw her eyes, those familiar, bitchy eyes, that already told me she knew I'd been snooping. She gave me that look like I was the one overreacting, like I was the crazy one. That's her usual move: deny, lie, minimize. She started with her usual, "James, what's wrong? Why are you acting like that?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. I laid her phone on the nightstand and pointed at the screen. "Tell me what this is," I said. Her face immediately changed. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her tone shifted, getting defensive. "James, it's nothing. It's just some messages, just some stupid texting. It's not what you think." She laughed nervously, trying to brush it off, but I wasn't buying it. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "What I think is that you've been lying to me. You've been texting Ryan, sexting him behind my back. During the week I buried our son while I was falling apart, you were out there, messing around with other men. Is that what I'm supposed to believe?" Her face twisted in that bitchy, dismissive way she always did. "James, you're overreacting. You're just angry because you're stressed about Ethan and everything else. It's not what it looks like." I couldn't believe her. That was her go-to: deny, deny, deny. She always had a story ready, a lie to cover her ass, but I'd seen enough. I told her, "No, Emily, I saw the messages, I saw the pictures. You've been cheating on me with Ryan. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes flickered for a second, then she just shrugged like it was no big deal. "Look, James, I don't know what you want me to say. I was lonely, okay? You were so caught up in your own world grieving Ethan that I just needed someone to talk to. It didn't mean anything, it was just sex. That's when I lost it. Sex, just sex. You're trying to tell me that sexting some guy, sending him photos of yourself and talking about how much you miss him isn't a big deal. Do you even hear yourself? Ethan just died, Emily. And you're out there sexting Ryan, lying to me every single day. How do you justify that? How do you look me in the eye and lie like that?" She looked at me, her face hardening. "James, I don't owe you an explanation. It's not like I cheated on you with some stranger. Ryan's just a guy I knew from work. We never met. It's not what you think. You're blowing this way out of proportion." Her voice was calm, too calm, like she was trying to manipulate me into believing her lies. I felt like I was losing my mind. My chest was tight, my head pounding. I wanted to scream, but I held it in. I told her, "You don't get to decide what I believe or don't believe. You've been lying for months, that's what I found out. And now I have to deal with the fact that my wife, who I loved, who I trusted, was out there fucking some guy while I was burying our son. How do you even sleep at night?" Her eyes flickered with that bitchy, dismissive look again. "James, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I can't keep doing this if you're just going to accuse me of everything. Maybe we need some space." I couldn't take her bullshit anymore. I told her to leave right then and there. I needed time to breathe, to think, to process, though part of me knew deep down that nothing she could say would make this better. That night I sat alone in the dark, staring at the wall, feeling empty. Every moment of grief for Ethan was now tainted with this raw, burning betrayal. I kept asking myself, how did I not see it? How did I miss all these signs? I was so busy pretending everything was okay, trying to hold us together after losing our boy. And now I realized she'd been slipping away from me for months, cheating, sexting, lying. It was like I'd been living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The next morning, I knew I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine, that I could somehow fix this. I had to decide what to do, whether to fight for her or walk away and pick up the pieces of what was left of my life. Either way, I knew my trust was shattered and my heart was permanently broken. I just didn't know yet if there was any way back from this. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and endless thoughts. I couldn't escape the image of her sexting Ryan, the way her face looked when she lied to me, the way I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I kept replaying that confrontation over and over, trying to find some part of her story that made sense, some reason why she did it. But all I got was a hollow feeling, like I'd been duped, used, and left to pick up the shattered pieces of my life. Honestly, I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. Part of me wanted to just walk away, to leave her and never look back. The other part was still clinging to the hope that maybe she'd come clean, admit everything, and maybe, just maybe, there could be some kind of way to fix this. But deep down, I knew the truth wouldn't come out that easily. Betrayal like this doesn't just fade away. It scars you, changes how you see everything. One night I got a message from her. She said she needed to talk. That's when I knew she was going to try and spin some kind of story to save herself. She begged me to meet her, to hear her out. I was so tired of her lies that I didn't want to hear anything. I told her to come over, but I made her promise she'd be honest this time. That was the moment I realized I couldn't do this alone anymore, that I needed to hear her side, even if I already knew what it would be. She came into the apartment the next evening, her eyes darting around like a kid caught with her hand in the cookie jar. She sat on the couch, fidgeting, and started with her usual "James, I love you. I didn't mean for it to happen." Her voice was shaky, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. Then she started with the excuses. How Ryan was just a distraction, how she was lonely, how she didn't really want to hurt me, that she never meant for it to go this far. I listened, and honestly, part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe she was genuinely sorry, that maybe she freaked out and realized what she'd done was wrong. But I couldn't ignore the fact that she kept lying. She kept trying to justify her actions, and I knew in my gut that this wasn't just about loneliness or frustration. It was about her needing to feel sexy, desired, wanted, something I clearly hadn't been giving her. Still, I asked her straight out, "Why Ryan? Why did you pick him? What was so special about him that you'd sext him, send him pictures, and spend months sneaking around?" She looked down, then shrugged again like it was no big deal. "He's just someone who listens, someone who makes me feel alive. It's not like I actually wanted to leave you or anything. It was just a mistake." That's when I lost it, mistake. That's what she called it. For months, she'd been sexting this guy while I was trying to hold us together after Ethan died, while I was falling apart. And her excuse was that it was just a mistake, that she just needed someone to listen. I wanted to scream at her, wanted to call her out for the lying bitch she was, but I just sat there silent. I felt like I'd been punched again, deeper this time. I told her, "Emily, I don't buy it. You lied to me every day. You sent pictures of yourself, told Ryan you missed him, and sexted him like it was nothing. How do I know you weren't planning to leave? How do I know you weren't secretly hopping to run off with him or something?" She looked me in the eyes then, and for the first time her mask slipped. There was a flicker of guilt, but it was quickly replaced with that bitchy, dismissive attitude. "James, I don't have to explain myself to you. I made a mistake, sure, but I love you. I want us to work, that's all that matters." That was the moment I realized something. I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. Her words sounded hollow, rehearsed, like she was just trying to smooth things over. I felt so angry, so betrayed, that I wanted to shake her and scream, "How could you do this to me? How could you betray me after everything we've been through?" But I didn't. I just told her to leave. I couldn't be in the same room with her anymore, not then. I needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out if I could even forgive her. As she left, she looked back at me with that familiar bitchy smirk, like she still thought she could manipulate her way out of this mess. But I knew better. That night I stayed up again, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was drowning. The grief over Ethan was still fresh, and now there was this added pain, knowing my wife had been unfaithful, lying to my face, sneaking around behind my back. I had no idea how to process it. All I knew was that my trust was shattered, and I had a choice to make. Do I try to fix this, or do I walk away? The truth was, I didn't have any clear answers yet. All I knew was that I'd never looked at her the same way again. The days that followed her leaving were the worst of my life. I felt like a shell of a person walking around, numb and hollow. Every little thing reminded me of her, her scent, her laugh, the way she used to look at me with that bitchy smirk. I tried to keep busy, work extra hours, pretend everything was normal, but inside I was falling apart. The betrayal cut so deep that I wasn't sure I'd ever heal from it. One morning I woke up and realized I couldn't keep living like this. I needed to decide what was next. I couldn't stay in a marriage where I'd been lied to for months, where trust was shattered beyond repair. I sat down with a pen and paper, trying to figure out my options. Divorce was the obvious choice, but part of me hesitated. I loved Ethan, and I didn't want to rip our family apart completely. But I also knew I couldn't stay with someone who had lied to me so blatantly. I remembered the funeral, how I buried my boy, thinking I'd never get another chance to hold my family close. And now I felt like I was losing everything all over again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sending those messages, her lying face, her bitchy smirk. I couldn't believe she'd do this to me, especially then. That night, I finally decided I had to talk to her again, one last time. I needed closure, even if I knew nothing could undo what had happened. I sent her a message, asking her to meet me at the park. When she arrived, she looked even more dismissive than before. Her arms crossed, that familiar bitchy attitude. I looked her in the eyes and said, "Emily, I can't do this anymore. I've had enough. I know about the sexting about Ryan. I know you lied to me for months. I loved you and I wanted to believe it was all a mistake, but I see now I was just fooling myself." She rolled her eyes and scoffed. "James, you're overreacting. I made a mistake, yeah, but I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you and I want us to work through this." Her words sounded hollow, like she was throwing anything she could think of to keep me from leaving. I felt the anger bubbling inside again. The pain, too. I told her, "No, Emily, you had your chance. You chose Ryan over me, over Ethan. I don't think I can ever trust you again. And honestly, I don't want to stay in a marriage where I'm constantly doubting you, wondering if you're still lying or cheating. I need space. I need to figure out what's best for me and Ethan." She looked furious, her face twisting into that bitchy mask. "Fine, do whatever you want, but don't come crawling back when you realize you're making a mistake. I'm not some mistake you can just walk away from." That was the moment I knew I had to follow through. Whatever pain I was feeling, whatever regret or heartbreak, I couldn't keep pretending. That night I moved into the guest room. I needed distance, clarity. I knew this was the beginning of the end, but I also knew I couldn't stay in that toxic, lying mess anymore. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the chaos in my head. But every night I'd lie in bed, replaying everything, her lies, her sexting, the betrayal. Ethan was confused, of course. He'd ask about Mommy, and I'd tell him she was taking some time to think. Deep down, I didn't know if I'd ever be able to tell him the full truth, that his mother was a lying, cheating wench. One day, I sat with a lawyer. We discussed divorce, custody, and what I'd need to do to protect myself and Ethan. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I knew I couldn't let her ruin my life completely. I had to do what was best for Ethan, even if it meant losing her forever. That's when I realized how much her betrayal had changed me. I used to be a trusting guy, believing in loyalty and honesty. Now I was hardened, cautious, suspicious of everyone from women to friends. I didn't want to be that guy, but I couldn't help it. Trust was broken, maybe beyond repair. And deep inside, I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak, relief that I was finally taking control, heartbreak because I'd lost my wife and maybe my family. Looking back, I see how blind I was. I ignored the signs, convinced everything was fine, while she was out there lying to me. I realize now that some betrayals cut so deep, they leave scars no amount of time can heal. But I also learned that you've got to stand up for yourself, even when it hurts. No one, especially not someone you loved, should get away with that kind of betrayal without consequences. That's the lesson I'm taking from all this. The legal process took longer than I expected, and honestly, it was a brutal ride. Every document I signed, every court appearance felt like another punch to the gut. But I knew I had to do it for Ethan, for myself. I couldn't let her betrayal ruin everything, especially not the little that was left of our family. The custody battle wasn't easy. She tried to manipulate me, crying crocodile tears about how much she loved Ethan and how she'd change, but I saw through that. I knew she was still the same manipulative, bitchy woman who lied to my face and sexted some guy behind my back. In the end, I got primary custody of Ethan. I made it clear I wanted him to be with me most of the time, and I fought hard to keep her from having too much access, especially given her history of deception. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about protecting Ethan from the chaos she created. She threw a tantrum, called me all sorts of names, accused me of trying to keep Ethan away from her because I was bitter. But I stood firm. I knew what she was capable of, and I couldn't risk Ethan's well-being. During this process, I also found out some things I wish I hadn't. She had been cheating on me long before Ryan, probably for years. I uncovered messages she'd sent to some guy from her office, flirty, suggestive. She convinced herself she was just seeking validation, but I knew better. She wasn't a victim, not really. She chose to cheat, to lie, to betray everything we had. Ethan's death was her excuse, but I saw through it. She'd been selfish, reckless, and manipulative for a long time. It was around this time that I realized I couldn't keep pretending I was okay. Every day, I had these moments where I'd feel this deep, aching sadness, like I'd lost my best friend, my partner, the mother of my child, all in one shot. I felt angry at her for all the lies, hurt for Ethan, and guilty for not seeing it sooner. I'd sit in my car during lunch breaks and think about what I should do, whether to try and patch things up, or just move on completely. Honestly, I was leaning toward moving on. The trust was gone, and I couldn't see any way back. Every time I looked at Ethan, though, I knew I had to keep pushing forward. I wanted him to grow up in a safe, honest environment. I promised myself I'd be the best dad I could be, even if it meant being alone. The pain of losing my wife was huge, but losing my son was an unbearable thought. I'd never let her mess with Ethan's stability again. I also started seeing a therapist, not because I was weak, because I knew I needed help. Dealing with the betrayal, the grief, and the anger was overwhelming. I had to find a way to let go of the pain, to rebuild myself. My therapist helped me see that I wasn't responsible for her choices, that I deserved better than someone who lied and cheated behind my back. Slowly but surely, I started to heal. It wasn't easy, and some days I still wake up feeling empty, but I tried to focus on what I could control. Looking back, I realized that I learned some hard lessons. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. People can surprise you in good ways and bad. And no matter how much you love someone, you've got to look out for yourself and your family. I should have seen the signs earlier, but I was so caught up in grief and trying to make things work that I ignored them. Now I know that sometimes loyalty isn't enough. People have to earn your trust every single day. So here I am, still standing, still trying to put myself and Ethan back together piece by piece. I don't have all the answers, and I probably never will. But I do know that I'm stronger than I thought I was. Betrayal hurts like hell, but it also teaches you who you really are. And I'm learning to be okay with the fact that I might have lost my wife, but I haven't lost myself. That's what matters now. Looking back, I realized that everything I went through changed me in ways I never expected. The pain of betrayal, the heartbreak over Ethan, and the betrayal of my trust, it all left scars. But it also made me tougher, more aware. I've learned that love isn't enough sometimes, not if the other person isn't willing to be honest, loyal, or faithful. And I've come to accept that some people, no matter how much you love them, will choose their own selfish paths over what's right. That's a brutal lesson, but one I had to learn the hard way. I've also learned that it's okay to feel broken, to mourn the loss of what I thought my life was. I allowed myself to grieve, to cry, to be angry. I didn't bottle it up or pretend everything was fine. That's how healing begins, by facing the truth, no matter how ugly it is. And I've realized that I am stronger than I thought I was. I can survive this. I can even find happiness again, even if it's without her. Most importantly, I've learned to focus on what really matters: my son, my integrity, my own peace. Ethan is my anchor. His innocent smile, his endless energy remind me every day that I have a reason to keep going. I want to give him a better life, one built on honesty and stability. That means moving forward without her, without the lies, and without looking back. I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret pushing through the pain, because now I see clearly. I see the warning signs I ignored before, the red flags I let slide because I was too caught up in trying to save what I thought was a perfect life. No more. From now on, I'm going to trust myself more, listen to my gut, and never let someone betray me like that again. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust me, I know how devastating it feels. It's the kind of pain that can make you question everything, even your own worth. But you have to remember, you're not alone, and you don't have to stay stuck. Heal at your own pace. Cut out the toxic people. Focus on yourself and the people who truly matter. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that counts is your own happiness, your own integrity, and the love you give to your kids, yourself, and the people who genuinely care. I'm still rebuilding my life piece by piece. I don't know what the future holds, and honestly, I don't think I'll ever forget what happened. But I do know that I'm better for having gone through it. I'm learning to forgive myself for the times I ignored the signs, for trusting the wrong people, and for letting my heart get broken. It's not about forgetting, but about moving forward with a better understanding of what real loyalty and love mean. So this is my story, betrayed, broken, but slowly healing. I hope anyone reading this who's going through the same thing finds strength in knowing they're not alone. You'll get through it. You will. And someday, you'll look back and realize that the pain was just a part of your journey to becoming stronger.